So I've just read Aestival Tide by Elizabeth Hand. So this is the second book in the Winterlong series. I think I like this book a little bit more than book number one. Uh, but yeah, which is kind of weird because when I started reading the book, I thought I would like this book less, mainly because we're no longer following the same characters as in book one. So it kind of felt like I don't know if there are gamers out there, but it felt like a DLC essentially. Another story, that's kind of parallel to the main story. But it turns out that not really. Near the end we have this other character. I'm saying near the end, but it's around the midway point of the book that we're seeing this character that was in book number one. In book number one, he was more of a secondary character. He still is in book number two, but kind of important to what's to follow, I guess. I think. I hope. I really enjoyed this character. In book number one, he's not a likable character by any means, but in book number one, he was just okay. He was just somebody there. And then in book number two, he's more of an interesting character, actually. I can't wait to see where that story is going, actually. I'm pretty sure we're going to see the characters that we were seeing in book number one mixed with the characters that we saw in book number two also. I can't wait to see if that's the case. It turns out that, everything that happens in book number two is within this city, Arabath, I think. I've not written the name of the city. But that being said, the city in itself is a character. I really enjoyed the aesthetic of the city. So it's a domed city with multiple domes above the city, to protect the city and its inhabitants against the rain. So as we saw in book number one, these acid rains, not only acid, but like nuclear rain, poisonous thingy elements. So the domes are essentially there to protect the city and its inhabitants, as I said. But also, like, the city is built like a ziggurat, so you have all these different levels on top of each other. I really enjoyed that aesthetic. I've not talked about that in book number one, about the gene slaves. But the gene slaves are essentially the ones that created the Aardmen, so the human dogs thingy. They also made Miss Scarlet, so the monkey chimpanzee that can talk. But also here, like, the gene slaves are a bit more advanced than what we thought in book number one. Actually, they're making these quote-unquote zombies, so they're named Razas. So the Razas are essentially just dead people that were resurrected, but they're not fully operational, if I could say it like this. They're, more or less zombies that can talk, essentially, and that can no longer die afterwards. They're experiments, so the gene slaves are mainly like scientists that are experimenting with genetics for animals and humans. So on with the story, though. So as I mentioned, this city is built as a ziggurat under domes protecting it. And there are these architects that are just repairing the city to make sure that the city can continue to function, essentially. And there are also these weird factions around it. You have these religious fanatics that are saying that Ucalegon is coming, so the god of the tempest or something like this. And you have these royalties, so they're not really kings or queens, but you have this family that's on the top of all. I guess you could say like kings. They're more like noble ones or something like this. They're not really king or anything, but they're the one ruling over the city. So the Orsina, they're ruling over the city, and they're kind of a bit weird. One of them is a gene slave, so she's doing all these weird experiments on animals. And also, so the religious fanatics, every Aestival tide, so every 10 years, they have this festival where they sacrifice people to their god. It's not really to their god, but they're sacrificing to a weird creature in the name of their god. Of a god, I shouldn't say their god, but a god, Ukaligan, so mainly the god of the tides of the sea, maybe kind of Poseidon or something like this. But it's a concept that I really enjoyed, the Ukaligan god, that god of nature, and you have this city built as a ziggurat, so I really enjoyed all these things. And you have two people, dreaming this dream of this forbidden dream, essentially, of the green country, so the outside of the city. So nobody ever leaves the city. They're always living inside that city. Nobody leaves because they think that if they leave, they'll just die because the air is poisonous and all these things. In a way, the air is poisonous, but not always, so they could potentially live outside the city, but they don't know that, so they are being controlled and brainwashed. So that's it for this review. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it.